Hello, heathens. I'm Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. In this weekly audio ritual, we explore the 8 seasons of the witch's wheel of the year, and we discover how it is so much more than 8 Sabbats. We weirding witches time travel through holy days, festivals, and celestial events connecting our celebrations and magic to the past, present, and future. Our cackling fills the night as we take our turn gathering the wool, wielding the distaff, and spinning the wheel. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm so glad that you could attend. Come inside, come inside. You're only going to know what that is if you're really old like me. All right. Welcome. Come on in, witches, heathens, weirdos. You know what we're all about here. Connecting the past, the present, and the future in an amalgam of witchery. Okay, that's enough of that. Hi, I'm your host, Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. And this week we are going to be looking at Mabon / fall equinox season, waxing moon in Capricorn, lunar week 34 by some lunar calendars. Before we get into all of the stuff, though, let me say, if you are not familiar with this portion of the wheel, here on whatever platform it is that you are listening to this podcast, I have a 2-hour video on Mabon / fall equinox / witches Thanksgiving / second harvest. This holiday has a lot of different names. That video is also up on YouTube. And this is just my yearly lecture on this wheel piece, this equinox, this holiday, this festival cycle and season, as we tip from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year. And that'll get you oriented and get you grounded in the work that we're doing at this time of year. That's up for free. Go check it out if you are not familiar. If you're like, I've watched that already. I've watched it like 8 times. I've been going to your classes for years. Thanks. Appreciate it. Glad to have you back. Big, gigantic, ultra, mega thank yous to my patrons who support me and make it possible for me to teach those classes for free at this point. It's pretty dope, pretty excellent, pretty exciting. And as a thank you to my patrons, folks that are subbed at the $5 and up level get access to extra stuff, playlists, and things like that. Folks that are subbed at the Venus level, $9 and up, get access to the Patreon bag of holding, wherein they will find a workbook for every one of our Sabbats that has ritual practices and prayers and advice on building altars. It has a lot of folklore and astronomy, full moon names, heliacal star risings, and there's a lot of stuff in the workbook, including a calendar, out of which we get a lot of the information for our weekly podcast. But there's a lot of stuff in the workbook and in the calendar that we do not get to in the podcast. So if you want the complete wham bam thank you ma'am, subscribe to my Patreon at the Venus level and higher. And folks that sub at the Sun level and higher, which is $23 and up, get readings with me on a regular basis, a couple times a year, up to every month, to be able to call in a deeper level of support to work with this symbology on a much more personal level. And that's some of my favorite stuff that I get to do, is working with people every month on their process, and really getting into the granular elements of the wheel and the work that we do in these 8 Sabbats as we move through space and time. Just the little things. It's just witchcraft, people. That's all. So if that stuff interests you, there is a link in the description here in this here podcast to my website, so you can watch videos, to my Patreon if you would like to subscribe. And if money is tight for you, heard, seen, feel it. Yes. I very much empathize. I totally understand. Leaving a thumbs up, leaving a rating on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on is immensely helpful and supportive. Sharing this on social media, letting your friends and family and coworkers know about this podcast is immensely supportive, and I deeply thank you. It really is very special to me when people listen to this work and think, I know somebody who really would get something out of this. It delights me. So thank you to everybody who shares this every week. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you. Okay, that's enough of that. Um, back to the mer. um, what have we got going on this week? Let me tell you, we have a butt ton. Okay, we have a lot going on this week, and first and foremost, I want to orient us in the work that we are doing here in Mabon season. Um, our witches' work in this time centers around harvest, health, purification, and transition. And these things take a bunch of different forms. We're going to see each of these elements emphasized at various times throughout this season. And I guess as a side note, hi, Queen of Tangents. If you're new here, it's my brand. It's what I do. I go off randomly, little pathways of thought, because no one is here to stop me. So, but I refer to the Sabbats as seasons. A lot of folks and a lot of traditions treat the Sabbats as a single day event, or maybe a 2 day, or maybe even a 3 day event, but a very sort of encapsulated, right, and enveloped kind of collection of days and hours. And this is where the holiday is, and then nothing the rest of the time. That's not how I see it. And I'm sure I'm not the only pagan that sees it this way. I'm sure that there are other authors and folks, practitioners out there that see it this way. But not too many of us. Because for the most part, when you pick up a book on the Sabbats, they're going to talk about an individual day and things that you want to do in that day, or those couple of days, or maybe the week even, concerning the Sabbat. But the rest of the time is sort of left blank. And to me, the Sabbats really are a totality of time. None of the Sabbats are just a single day for me. They all encompass several weeks. And so for me, Mabon season, or fall equinox season, starts on the fall equinox. It starts when when the sun moves into Libra, for those of us who practice tropical astrology. Um, and that is fall equinox for us here in the northern hemisphere. That is spring equinox for our friends down in the southern hemisphere. And then it progresses on through the next several weeks, right up to Samhain season. And there's a little bit of a gray area there for me. I technically kind of think of Samhain season as beginning when the sun moves into Scorpio. So in total, for fall equinox season, or Mabon season, I'm kind of looking at a window of about 5 to 6-ish weeks, give or take a few days here or there. So we have a lot of time. In other words, my very long-winded point here is this: we have a lot of time to work with these various themes. And as we work with them through the lens of paganism and heathenry, we are going to see these themes come up over and over and over again. We don't see it on just one day. We see holy days and festivals throughout this time period. And if we're looking at it through a global lens, and we're considering all of the different spiritual and cultural practices that are happening around the world, past and present, we again will see these themes reiterated throughout this time period. Again, they are not all piled up on a single day or even in a single week, but we will see them repeated throughout this portion of the year. And so that gives us a little room, right? That gives us a little bit of time and a little bit of space to be able to feel into the vibes of a particular portion of the wheel. And I think also it gives us an opportunity to really dig into the granular elements of what a season could be for us on a personal level. Okay, that was a lot of preamble before this week's podcast. Thanks for bearing with me. So, to come back to what got me off on all of that stuff, our major themes for witches during Mabon or fall equinox season are harvest, health, purification, and transition. And as I said, we're going to see iterations of these ideas throughout this entire season from holidays and festivals past and present. And as we break that down, the types of stuff that we see are holidays and festivals, and lots of other events, emphasizing ideas like fruition, harvest, abundance, healing, resting after labor and slowing down, purification, balance, and atonement. And ultimately, especially as we get closer to Samhain season, shifting seasons, underworld journey work, and ancestor work and shadow work. And again, we see all of that stuff scattered throughout. So it isn't even that just like this portion or that portion has, the monopoly on that stuff. Okay. So what are we doing this week? Let's talk about it. Okay, so I know that I said that we don't see a big pileup of holy days. We actually see them all spread out throughout the season. But this week I'm kind of lying because we absolutely do see a gigantic pileup of holy days and festivals this week. It's kind of nuts. And placed on top of this giant collection of stuff, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Vindemiatrix. And I'm going to talk about this first because it really connects us to the symbology of a lot of our other holy days that we have this week. So, Vindemiatrix is a fixed star in the constellation or connected to the constellation of Virgo. And why are we talking about Virgo stuff? Well, TLDR, the precession of the equinoxes. There's no time. Look it up. The zodiacal precession, precession. But also, we talk about it in the Mabon class. That, in my opinion, Virgo has a lot to say and a lot to teach us about Mabon season, even though it technically ends in tropical astrology. When the season is starting, September 21st is when we move into Libra season. So we're technically not in Virgo season anymore. And yet Virgo symbology runs throughout this season. So, this is the heliacal rising of this fixed star. Heliacal rising meaning that if we were to stay up all night and watch the eastern sunrise, or watch the eastern horizon, we would see this fixed star rise on the eastern horizon about an hour or two before the sun does. And they are thought to be rising together. Heliacal meaning sun or solar oriented or connected to the sun in some way. So this is the sun rising of this fixed star. They're obviously not together. It's an optical illusion. The fixed star is bajillions of miles away. The sun also bajillions of miles away, but closer. Okay. Not going to get into the astrology of right now. Go watch the class. Okay. Let's talk about this fixed star though. What is Vindemiatrix? Vindemiatrix is this fixed star that's found in the constellation of Virgo, and it is found in the right arm or the right hand. And it is connected with the vine or the grapes that Virgo is holding in their right hand. So, the symbology of this, in terms of how it is interpreted in astrology, I'm actually not going to get into that because I'm just not going to. But we're talking about Virgo and we're talking about grapes. And we know that we are in the season of this great harvest period that's happening in the Northern Hemisphere. And what do we have this week? Well, we have a whole bunch of festivals that are dedicated to harvesting. We have a lot of harvest festivals this week. We also have a whole bunch of festivals that are specifically dedicated to the grape and, in particular, wine. So, kind of the results of the grape, right? Like where we're ultimately going with that. But we also have a whole bunch of festivals that are dedicated to women and femmes and non binary folk, that are either just a celebration of womanliness, or they are healing, purification, and fertility uh, festivals or holy days, and or they are days where mother goddess energy is being celebrated or worshipped. Goddess as embodiment of wisdom is being celebrated, etc., etc., etc. So there is just like a lot of really intense crossover with Virgo being the great goddess, being a type of symbol of the great goddess, and particularly the goddess that gives birth to the harvest. So we have mother imagery here. We have goddess as wisdom. We know that, as we talk about in the Mabon class, um, Virgo is deeply connected to the tarot card Hermit. And so there is a deep thread of symbolism of goddess as enlightenment, goddess as wisdom, wisdom keepers in general. Um, and then we have the grape and the vine, and we have all of these holidays that are dedicated to drunkenness, literally, or just worshiping wine itself, even if we're not enjoying it to excess. So, Vindemiatrix kind of, starting us all off with all of this stuff. And on this day, on October 2nd, we literally have like 12 different holy days piled up on this one day, that are in alignment either with the heliacal rising of Vindemiatrix, or they're in alignment with this waxing half moon in Capricorn. So, whoa, that's how it works. Here we go. Okay. So bouncing around a little bit during this week, let's talk about the stuff that we've got going on. Again, not going to talk about all of the holy days because frankly, there's just too damn many of them. We don't have time. But here on October 2nd, we have Navapad Oli from our Jain friends and ancestors. And this is, a feast day and a massive, it's not even a day, it's actually a 9-day festival that is incredibly holy. It's a big deal. It's a type of New Year festival, where Jains worship the 9 supreme entities of the universe. And we know that we are also in a New Year's type of moment, as we saw last week with our Hindu friends and ancestors celebrating Navratri, our Jewish friends and ancestors celebrating Rosh Hashanah, our ancient Roman friends and ancestors celebrating the Jupiter Stator temple opening, and right. We have a lot stuff beginning at this time. And again, that's sort of this acknowledgement of like, we're opening up the dark half of the year. We're opening up this portion of the year. And clearly it was a big deal to our ancient friends and ancestors, and our modern ones as well. So we have that going on. We have the Mehregen festival from our Zoroastrian friends and ancestors in Persia, and present day Iran. Um, this is a festival dedicated to the Zoroastrian deity Mithra, and Mithra is venerated as the god of friendship, love, and affection. But outside of that, culturally, this is just, not just, but it is a traditional autumn harvest festival. And so lots of beautiful symbolism woven into that. From our Greek friends and ancestors, we have Pyanepsia and Okothori. And these two holy days are also festivals of harvest and festivals of drinking wine and celebrating the miracle, basically, of bread. We have the Dies Natalis for Jupiter Fulger, who is the Jupiter of lightning, from our Roman friends and ancestors. And from our German friends and ancestors, we have the festival of Erntedankfest, which is, again, another Thanksgiving festival that focuses on harvest and bounty and appreciation of all of that stuff. That's all just October 2nd. See what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not even saying all of the ones that are happening on October 2nd. Like folks are going ham this week. That's really what I'm trying to say. Folks are going ham. October 3rd, we have Marawu, the women's healing and fertility ceremonies from our Hopi friends and ancestors. On October 4th and 5th, from our Jewish friends and ancestors, we have Yom Kippur. And this is also a part of their New Year's festival complex that is going to basically stretch throughout the month of October. Like I said, last week we had Rosh Hashanah. This week we have Yom Kippur. Next week we have Sukkot. The week after that we have Simchat Torah, and the week after that we have something else. Sorry, I know that there's another holiday that comes after that. Where is it? Where is it? No, sorry, I can't find it in my notes. But this is yet another stage of the welcoming in of the new year. And during Yom Kippur, this is a solemn observance day of atonement. Um, and atonement is an interesting word. It's a powerful word, and it can carry a lot of baggage for some folks. So I do not want to speak for Jewish people at all. Um, as a person outside of that faith, I think that this holiday is a really cool time for us to just have a day of peace for ourselves, to have a day of quiet solitude for ourselves. Um, but also, and we talked about this last week, and I'm bringing it up again here because we are here in Yom Kippur. This is a really, really fantastic day to apologize. If you feel like you are carrying a burden on your heart around something that has happened with a friend, a family member, a coworker, a neighbor, and you feel like there's, bad feelings, you feel like there is something that needs to be settled, that's something that needs to be forgiven or apologized, this is the day to do that. This day is, again, I don't want to speak for Jewish folks, but this day is definitely around you, centered around the idea of you apologizing for things that you have done. Um, and also, I would encourage you to be open if folks are coming to you with an apology. Maybe this is a good time to, lay your anger down, or lay your cynicism down, or your hurt for a moment and hear their apology. It's entirely up to you whether you accept it. I'm not going to tell you, because I don't know the circumstances, right? But this is one of those moments where it's like, can we make peace here? Um, and I talk about this in the Mabon class because this idea of making peace with our loved ones and our community members is a big deal at Mabon season. It's a big deal in fall equinox. Why? Because we are going into the dark half of the year. And this portion of the year psychologically and biologically scares us in the Northern Hemisphere. Now, on a conscious level, you might be like, what? No, I love fall. This is my favorite time of year. It's my favorite time of year. But on a biological level, we are a species that has lived on this planet for, basically the whole time, right? Like, as far as we know, anyways. And we are deeply, intrinsically tied to the biorhythms of this planet. And the biorhythm at this time is centered on disintegration and ultimately stagnation, stillness, and death. We are watching the natural world stop. It's not producing food anymore. The light is growing dim. The days are growing shorter. The nights are growing longer. The sun is growing colder, and it is rising lower and lower in the sky every day on a very deep animal brain, lizard brain, insect brain, biological level deep in us. There is this oh shit bell quietly going off of like, we had better get it together or we might not live through whatever is coming towards us. And here in our modern world of electric light and gas stoves and masterful cars and architecture, blah, 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 right? Like we on a conscious level think like, oh, that's not going to touch me. I'm not worried about that. Well, as we just saw with our friends down in Florida, nature can do whatever the hell it wants. And the more we piss it off, the more it's like, I don't think so, kid. And so, um, we can find ourselves in the cold and the dark pretty quickly, even in our incredibly modern world. Um, and I think that we register that on a really deep biological level. I think it's really important for us to come back to that piece of our experience of being a species that has lived on this planet. I know I'm going off on one of my rants. I'm going to try to rein it in, but as we move into the dark, we want to make peace with as much stuff as we can, as many people as we can, so that that is one less thing burdening us as we move into the dark. And potentially that's one more ally that we know that we can count on. That's one more person that I know that I don't necessarily have to worry about other than making sure that they're okay. But now I know that that person's also going to hopefully make sure I'm okay. And that, my friends, is mutual aid. Uh, and, something we need significantly more of in this world. So this season is really about like equilibrium, right? Libra season, the balance between light and dark, the balance between guilt and accountability, the balance between cynicism and hope is a lot of actually what we're doing here. And so our Jewish friends and ancestors have this beautiful sentiment within Yom Kippur. Now, there's a whole lot more to this celebration than that, but I really wanted to give this celebration some space within our podcast this week because I think it helps all of us, not just Jewish people, address some really important work. And I don't think that you need to be a person of faith. I think that this work is stuff that's just as important for agnostics and atheists as it is for people that have spiritual practices. So thanks, Jewish folks, for reminding us of the work that we need to do at this time. Okay. Other things that are happening on October 4th, we have the Chongyung Festival from our Chinese friends and ancestors, and this is another day that is sort of drenched in philosophy around, the interconnectedness between dark and light, day and night, moon and sun, femininity and masculinity, earth and sky, all of that stuff. There is, a sense of like taking care of ancestors. Folks will go and sweep tombs and leave food offerings and burn incense for their ancestors and things like that. So another day here focused on that. Also on this day from our Greek friends and ancestors, we have the Stenia, and this is a festival dedicated to Demeter and Persephone. This is basically in continuation of the great Eleusinian mysteries, which wrapped up last week, but getting us ready to head into Thesmophoria, which will be happening later in the week, which I will talk about in just a second. One of my all-time favorite Greek holidays, I might add. But it is really around waking up women in society and saying, hey, we need to go take care of ourselves. We need to purify. We need to get ourselves right. We've just had this massive season of labor, and we need to take a minute for ourselves to get grounded and centered in before we head into whatever's coming next. There is a ton more holidays on this day, but we're not going to get to them. October 5th, we have from our Hindu friends and ancestors, Dussehra, and this is the end of Navratri. And it also marks not only the end of Navratri, but the beginning of the countdown before we reach Diwali, which is the next really big Hindu festival that's happening. From our Japanese friends and ancestors, we have Jigari, which is another fall season witnessing. Basically, it's a moment to like go out. It's getting close to the full moon and just literally go look at fall leaves. And I have it centered on this day, but this is a regional holiday, so it can happen at any time, really sort of during the October season, whenever the weather suits going out and hunting down like the most beautiful fall leaves. From our Byzantine friends and ancestors, we have the day of the Holy Spirit for Sophia. And throughout this season, we have a bunch of holidays that are dedicated to Saint Teresa, the Feast of Saint Mary, the Feast of Holy Sophia. So there's all of these recognizing of um, goddess slash holy women as holy, as embodiment of wisdom, as mother. Um, Skipping back a couple of days, because see, this is how it is. On October 3rd, we have the Feast of Saint Dionysius from our Orthodox Catholic friends and ancestors. And that's going to link into a bunch of our other stuff that we've got going on here, because we have a whole bunch of Dionysus and drinking stuff going on. October 6th, we have from our Roman friends and ancestors, the Mediterralia. This was literally to honor the new vintage of wine that was harvested and bottled this year. From our Mexican friends and ancestors, we have the Day of the Virgin of Zapopan. And this is one of those holidays that on the surface, it just is like, oh, this is a day dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Then when you dig into a little bit, we find this. The name Zapopan means among the sapote trees. It derives from the Nahuatl word zapotl, which means, excuse me, which sorry, as I dig through my notes, with the addition of the locative suffix pan. It also has the nickname of ex Villa Maseria, which means former corn village. And it is dedicated to this place where the sapote trees are. Many small shrines called cues were built there mostly to worship the sun, although the primary deity was a godchild called Teopsilitlin, or the corn god. So, here again, we have corn symbolism, we have harvest symbolism, kind of buried within a day that seems on the surface just another generic dedicated to the Virgin Mary type of day. October 7th through the 9th, from our Greek friends and ancestors, we come to Thesmophoria. And this is one of my all time favorite Greek holidays. I have a big old piece on my website about this holiday. TLDR, this is a day where the women basically would look at the men and the children of their towns and go, suck it, go pound sand. I'm out. And they would drag their beds and their sheets and their tapestries and their tables and wine jugs and fruit and food and games and everything out to the fields. And they would basically set up their own little town outside of town where only women and girls were allowed to attend, women, girls, femmes. And they basically spent 3 days and 3 nights eating, sleeping, farting, burping, and cussing. There is a whole day dedicated to folks who have beef with each other, arguing and wrestling and basically fighting it out, with the elders kind of overseeing it so that nothing gets too out of hand. If people start to get a little like intense with it, it's broken up. It's like, hey, hey, hey. The point of which being to ultimately settle the beef, to come to some type of amends, to come to some kind of a compromise. So again, this idea of like, let's get this out of our systems and let's get this settled. Either we're going to settle on, we're going to agree to disagree, or we're going to agree to agree, but we're going to exorcise this energy one way or another. Again, I have a huge piece about this on my website. It's hilarious and wonderful and very healthy and healing, in my opinion. From our Islamic friends and ancestors, from October 7th to 8th, we have Mawlid on Nabi, and this is the birth of Muhammad. This is a date that is not specifically locked to this time of year because of the way that Muslims run their calendar. It is lunar oriented only. And so as the lunar cycles tick backwards through the years, so too their holy days as well. But I think it's really cool that we have the birth of Muhammad here in the midst of all of this massive crop being born at this same time, and all of these like goddess mother symbols happening in the background. From our indigenous friends and ancestors from the Tiwa tribe, we have the deer dance, and this is literally people calling the deer back to be hunted so that they can begin to stockpile meat for the winter. So many festivals on this day. Just briefly, we have the festival for Bacchus from our Roman friends and ancestors. We have the Dionysiad wine festival in Romania, but also our Roman friends and ancestors, we have Mania. And so here again, a whole huge series of festivals dedicated to drinking and drinking to excess, or just the idea of sort of being under the auspices of substance. And that's kind of an interesting theme with some of our astrology that we have this week, which we will get into here in a minute. From our Egyptian friends and ancestors, we have the Festival of Drunkenness. This was a festival, one of the many, many festivals dedicated ultimately to Hathor. But interestingly enough, this commemorates the return of the Eye of Ra, which was celebrated on the 20th day of the month of Thoth, or Thout, at temples to Hathor and other eye goddesses. It was celebrated as early as Middle Kingdom. There was dancing, feasting, drinking, and it represented the opposite of sorrow, hunger, and thirst that the Egyptians associated with death, that is like a massive theme through the hardest part of summer, which they have just gotten through. So dedicated to the Eye of Ra. Now put that in your pocket and keep that in mind, because we've got something coming up here. October 8th through 10th, we have the Wimacawari festival from our friends in Mexico, friends and ancestors. And what is this? This is the celebration of Ojo de Dios, aka the Eye of God. Yeah, I know. Isn't that an interesting coincidence? I'm sure it's just a coincidence. The Ojo de Dios, or the Eyes of God, is an ancient symbol made by the Huichol Indians of Mexico and the Amyari Indians of Bolivia. In Mexico, the central eye is made when a child is born. Each year, a bit of yarn is added until the child is 5 years old. In Bolivia, these are placed on altars so that God can see and protect people. And I know that my grandparents had Ojo de Dios all over the house. This was something that I learned how to make as a little kid. And it has always meant in my life a type of good luck charm, a blessing, a general sense of benevolence with this symbol. They're really cool, and they're actually really, really easy to make. Cool thing. From our Iroquois friends and ancestors, we have the Squash and Harvest Festival. From our Roman friends and ancestors here on October 8th, we have the Fontanalia, which is dedicated to the fountains, but it also is absolutely dedicated to fountains of wine, fountains of juice and abundance sort of pouring forth. From our Catholic friends and ancestors, we have Our Lady of Good Remedy, and right, so many festivals this week dedicated to goddesses of wisdom, goddesses of enlightenment, mother goddesses, the harvest itself, and produce, or what do I want to say here? Results, I guess, of the harvest in the form of wine. Okay, that was a very quick skip through our holy days. Now, let's get into the astrology of this week. But before that, how about an ad? Okay. If you love this podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you a bajillion billion times. See, the sirens are going off even as I say it. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. Thank you so much. You can sub for as little as $1 if you just think this podcast is dope and you want to support it. I don't run ads on the podcast, partly because I don't want to, and partly because I won't get paid even if I do. So screw them, man. You can sub, as I said, for as little as $1 or $5, even if you want to just support the podcast. And this is plenty of information. But if you want even more information, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra information about the Wheel of the Year, magical practices, tarot, etc., subbing at the higher levels, you get all kinds of cool free stuff. And at the even higher levels, you get free readings every month with me to be able to integrate all of this information into your personal life based on what's going on in your natal chart and all of that other good stuff. Join and change your life forever. Or, whatever. Thanks so much for the support. If you can't support financially, I completely understand, because life sucks on Earth right now. It's too expensive for everything. Tell a friend, share it on social media, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling especially hedonistic, you can leave a rating or a review. All right, that's the end of the ad. Let's get back to the podcast. Okay, for our astrology this week, first off, let me mention this week we also have 2 meteor showers kind of starting or peaking in this week. Running from October 2nd to November 7th, we have the Orionid meteor showers. And from October 6th to 10th, we have the Draconid meteor showers. Now, the Draconids are, for the most part, going to get totally washed out by the full moon that's coming up at the end of the week, at the beginning of next week. But the Orionids are going to be peaking around October 21st, 22nd, ish, and our next new moon is on the 25th. So the skies will be very dark at the peak time of the Orionid meteor showers. I recommend looking them up, finding out what direction you need to look to see the best amount of meteors, and drive out in the middle of the night somewhere. As long as the weather is good, you should be able to see a whole bunch of them. Okay, there's that. Now let's talk about the other astrology that's happening. So this week is beginning with a waxing half moon in Capricorn at 9 degrees 47 minutes or 10 degrees, however you like to work with that, Capricorn, and it will be hitting that degree at 5:14 p.m. Pacific Standard Time later in the day / early the next day for everybody else around the planet. So, looking at this moon, this chart is kind of poo-poo. I mean, I don't want to get real technical about it, but it's kind of doo-doo. It's kind of dookie. It's kind of like, you know what I mean? You're like, ugh, really? Okay. So why am I saying that? Why am I casting such negativity towards this waxing half moon? Well, because why not, right? No. Because the moon is making some pretty tough aspects to a lot of the planets that we would think of as benevolent. It's square to the sun, which is normal for a waxing moon, but it's also square to Venus, who is more or less conjunct the sun. And it's also square to Jupiter. So those are our 2 benevolent planets that we look to for positivity, generosity, hope, optimism. And both of those planets are like meh towards the moon this week. And then looking around the sky at what else is going on, we have Mercury, Venus, and the sun sort of all clustered up in like a boy band off on the side. Mercury is 20 degrees away, but it's still sort of in the same part of the sky. And all 3 of those bodies are more or less opposed to Neptune, Jupiter, and Chiron. They're also square Mars. And Saturn is off in the corner, just angry at everybody. And we'll talk about who Saturn is angry at and what that's all about in just a second here. But taking all of that into account, and thinking about what's happening for the moon specifically, and then thinking about the fact that it's in Capricorn, there is this sense of kind of groundedness, sure, but there's also a sense of like stodginess about this moon. And when we have our waxing moon in Capricorn, the things that we might end up thinking about are things like borders and containers, um, the edges of things. This is what's mine, that's yours. This is my problem, that's your problem. We know that the nodes have been moving through Taurus and Scorpio for some time now. We've been talking about that for a long time. And that is bringing a real deep emphasis to situations that feel like they revolve around our survival, and what we need to be able to survive in an environment. And so that's putting a lot of us on edge, which is reasonable. And Capricorn, being this earth sign, is like, yeah, I want to make sure that the money is there. I want to make sure that my property is secure. And I don't care about anybody after that. And it can be pretty cold in the way that it addresses stuff. So the fact that it's square Venus and square Jupiter doesn't lend to a very generous or optimistic or loving nature to this moon this week. And I think that that's really important because, as I just mentioned, we've got Saturn off in the corner, angry grandpa, as I love to refer to him, or them, honestly. And Saturn is still square the nodes, so is still lending, in the most diplomatic way that we can say it, a conservative attitude to things, but a very defensive and sort of clamped down, safety first, happiness third kind of attitude to a lot of the stuff that's going on. And Saturn is still square Uranus. Now, the Saturn Uranus square is something that I and lots of other astrology folks have been talking about for a couple of years now because it's been around for a while. And we are in the last pass of this aspect for 2022. These planets are going to slowly grow further and further apart, and ultimately they are going to come out of square with each other. But we're sort of in the last gasp of this aspect. And really, it's kind of running from the 1st of October through the 13th is when I think we're going to really feel it. It kind of is casting a shadow over the entirety of the month. But in all of our astrology, we kind of want to have that in the background of like, oh, right, those two planets are still arguing with each other. And the vibes of this aspect really kind of center around ideas like individual expectations versus collective responsibility. um, what is the old guard trying to cling to versus what is the new vanguard trying to break open and break ground for? Uranus has been this symbol of rebellion and revolution that we've seen all over the planet. But, something that we've talked about a lot here is even when we know that these systems are unhealthy for us and that they need to be broken down so that something new and healthier and more progressive can find purchase and begin to establish itself, we also have to recognize that our lives are built on these and within these power structures and within these systems. And so even if we are excited for these systems to change and go away, the process of that is still destabilizing for us. And that destabilization can be very frightening, can push us into or back into being very defensive or even offensive, to being ready to fight and ready to guard what's mine and shut it down and be very selfish and be very like greedy, right? And protective over our things. That's Saturn saying like, no, put up a fence, keep people out. This is dangerous. Don't share all your stuff. You don't know what's happening in the future. You might not have enough. You'd better save this for yourself. And Saturn's advice sounds really rational, and it is rational, but it isn't necessarily right. And at the same time, Uranus cannot guarantee that we will be safe in this new uncharted future. Uranus cannot guarantee that we will have all that we need. And so Saturn rolls in and is like, yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. You got to be greedy with your shit. You got to be protective of your shit. Screw your neighbor, forget about it. So we have all of these holy days at the same time, right? That are saying like, no, you need to make amends with your neighbor. You need to apologize. You need to mend those fences, but also mend the pathway, mend the gate in the fence, right? To make sure that people can come in and out. We need to mend and strengthen our community ties and our friend ties and our relative ties to make sure that we're all okay with each other. Yom Kippur, Thesmophoria, and all these other holidays that are like, are you connected to your community? Have you said you're sorry? Have you reached out to people and made sure they're okay? And then we have this astrology in the background that's like, don't do that. You might be putting yourself in jeopardy. So recognize the paradox there. Recognize that that's tough. That's difficult. Okay. So now coming back to this moon, um, this moon in Capricorn really wants us to think about power and how do we acquire power for ourselves, and where are we willing to compromise our morals or compromise our ethics to gain power or keep power. Where do we demand respect, right? And is it respect that we've actually earned, or are we just using our power to demand respect from a situation or a group of people who don't really have the power to say otherwise to us? And we certainly are seeing plenty of things like that play out in the world. From a very neutral standpoint, this moon wants us to ask ourselves, what is respect? What kind of respect do we want? What do we actually want to be respected for? Do we want to be respected because we're frightening? Do we want to be respected because people don't have a choice? Or do we want to be respected at all? Is that even a thing that's important to us? And if we do want to be respected, do we want to be respected for something positive? Do we want to be respected for trying our best, for helping people, even though it put us maybe in a little bit of jeopardy? Do we want to be respected for trying to do the right thing? That stuff. Tough work, right? I know it's not fun. And let me say, this whole month is bringing it to us astrologically. So, wherever it is that you can create a moment of peace for yourself, a moment of calm for yourself, wherever you can ground into your body and ground into your routines, that might be vital for you this month with the type of astrology that's getting thrown at us. Okay. So, when we are working with a waxing moon in Capricorn, we are uh, working with energy that is centered around awakening, activating, adorning, stimulating, preparing for action, the bones, the hair, the nails, the teeth, right? And as I say every single week, I am not a doctor of the human corpus. I am a doctor of ritual and witchery. And so I don't know a damn thing about medical anything. I'm just some person yelling on the internet. Please check with your trusted health advisor if you want to integrate any of this information into your health routines. And I always invite you to work with the metaphor. So if working with this in the physical sense is not appropriate for you, what are the bones of your actions, right? Where's the teeth of what it is that you're doing? What's the hair and the nails and the skin of the thing that you're doing? These are all the body parts that are ruled by Capricorn, but the metaphor here works too. And I think that the bones of a situation very much deal with respect, right? Like, what was the ultimate goal here? What was the skeleton of what we were working with, and how did that all play out? For our plant body work, we are very appropriately maintaining containers, borders, fences, beds, and structures. So if you only have indoor grow spaces, that might just be a matter of making sure that your plant stands are steady and secure, making sure that your pots are doing okay and that nobody's like busting out of their pots. If you are lucky enough to have outdoor grow spaces, this could be a really great time to reinforce your outdoor grow containers or make decisions about ways that you are ultimately going to be breaking those things down to prepare for fall and ultimately prepare for winter. We don't need to necessarily start to do that work yet, but you might want to go out and take a look at what you think you're going to have to do in the future to take care of that stuff. Okay, so that's some of the astrology for Sunday the 2nd. We have more because that's how this week is rolling out. Because we also have on Sunday the 2nd, Mercury stationing direct in Virgo at 24 degrees. Now, Mercury stationing direct after being in retrograde. Yes, this is a day that we should expect some delays. There might be some travel hiccups. There might be some communication hiccups. Any of the days that Mercury stations direct or retrograde, there tends to be a little like woohoo in the energy moment. Hopefully things will be rolling forward nicely after that. And when it stations direct, it is in opposition to uh, Neptune, which we find at um, 23 degrees of Pisces, Mercury stationing at 24 degrees of Virgo. And the big tension between Virgo and Pisces is servitude and labor and feeling obligated to work in a setting and make sure that things get done in a very kind of thankless, anonymous way, versus throwing yourself into something and sort of being dissolved into whatever it is. And so, and another type of anonymity, right? Um, so my deep encouragement for this day is to just go slow, read the fine print 3 or 4 different times, take a minute, have a friend look it over before you sign it if you have to sign a contract on this day or do something, legal, technical, whatever. Drive slow, walk slow, like take your time, relax, stay grounded. Do whatever you can to kind of stay here in the real world. When we have oppositions from Neptune, we can really forget to take care of our bodies. And this is a whole week of kind of being really aware of the body as producer and laborer and, harvester and all of that stuff. So, not losing yourself in work and slaving away at something and getting lost in the service to the thing, but making sure that you are staying grounded, that you are checking in with yourself. Have I drank water? Have I eaten a meal? That stuff. Have I stretched my body? All of those types of things. All of that stuff. Okay, now let's get to the rest of the week. Again, just a quickie reminder, buzzing kind of in the background with all of our stuff, we've got that Saturn Uranus square that's sort of glowering in the corner the whole time. Monday the 3rd, nothing in particular. Tuesday the 4th, the moon will be moving into Aquarius. And so there is a little bit of emphasis on starting to take care of our legs, especially our knees and our ankles. This is also a really holy time for doing our harvesting, plowing and weeding for our plant work at this time. So this is again, we are in the season of the harvest. So this is a holy time to be going out and harvesting seeds for next year. We have a waxing moon. We have the moon in a sign that is appropriate for harvesting. So very, very cool for that. But nothing else of note for that day. Wednesday the 5th, no big deal. Thursday the 6th brings us to our gibbous moon in Aquarius at 28 degrees. This is at 2:36 a.m. And also on this day, we have Mercury in Virgo trine Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 26 degrees. And here's what I want to say about this collection of stuff. Collectively, this is a really great day for figuring stuff out. This gibbous moon in Aquarius is expansive. It wants to bring in some amount of information. It wants to be revolutionary and progressive in the ways that it is thinking or conceptualizing things, or the sources where we are getting information from. Mercury trine Pluto um, is really fantastic when we need to work on stuff and figure things out and get a plan together. And all of our aspects to Pluto can lend us towards obsessive actions or compulsive actions. And with Mercury, it's about thinking. The moon also in an air sign. This is about thinking and communication. So if we need to concentrate on something, cool. If we need to figure something out, cool. Researching something, great. Investigating things, excellent. Um, and we want to make sure that we are doing that in measure, right? And so a way that we might um, mitigate that is that also going to hang out with friends and having interesting and progressive conversations with other people might jog us out of some of our mental loops if we find ourselves like getting stuck in a rut of thinking. This is also a really great time for speaking to power in a way that power and power structures might be more inclined to listen to us, to believe us, to favor us. So this is a great time for asking for a raise. This is a great time for putting social media messages out. If you need to do advertising, this is a good time for doing that. Just make sure that you are speaking with authenticity because folks are going to know if you are not. Um, the very next day, Friday the 7th, we have the sun in Libra opposing Chiron retrograde in Aries at 14 degrees. And Chiron wants to bring up painful experiences and painful circumstances from the past and the present to the end of us healing them. But in the moment, it can just be like, wow, this really fucking hurt. And we're having these super deep conversations with Mercury Pluto over here. And then here comes the sun opposed Chiron. And so this really intriguing penetrating conversation can suddenly strike something that's really painful. We might suddenly strike a nerve in ourselves or the person that we're talking to, and it's suddenly like, whoa, get off of me, get back, step back. And we're like, wait, that's not what I meant. Or, the other person is saying that to us. They're like, whoa, I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to offend you. And so it's a day that we may be feeling super activated, October 7th. We might, hear something or be a part of a conversation that's just like, oh my God, my brain, my heart. And so from a neutral standpoint, which is difficult to be in these days, but here we are. From a neutral standpoint, this astrology is really helpful in us having conversations with other people, I don't know, like a therapist, or trusted friends and confidants that have space to help you process. Don't put this on people who can't deal with it, please, and thank you. Or even just yourself, right? If we can maintain a measured attitude about what we're doing around having conversations around what is working, what is not working, right? What needs healing here? What needs to be sort of dredged up from the bottom of the cauldron or from the bottom of our brain and brought out into the light and talked about and kind of aired out a bit with ourselves or with people who have space and capacity to do that work with us. Again, that's from a neutral standpoint. When we're working with Chiron, it's always painful, but to the end of naming what's painful, naming the wound, and being able to ultimately heal it and glean the wisdom from that process. But saying that and doing it are two radically different things, especially when we are in a time period that is encouraging us to be defensive, encouraging us to be paranoid of other people and freaked out and on guard and all of that stuff, right? Okay. So, a tough day potentially, astrologically, um, because and then um, on Saturday the 8th at 2:56 p.m., we have Pluto stationing direct at 26 degrees of Capricorn. And let's say this: Pluto spends literally 6 months out of every year in retrograde. So Pluto being direct or retrograde is like whatever. Um, I know that there are some astrologers out there that are like, bah, the outer planets, who cares? I personally tend to kind of have that attitude, except for on the days when the planets appear to be changing direction. And then I'm like, hmm. So Pluto is a planet that works on a tectonic level, is how I like to describe it. It works at the level that volcanoes and earthquakes and tidal waves work at, which is deep, deep, deep in whatever their systems are. And then eventually the effects roll up to the surface, right? Think about a tectonic plate, and the tension that builds up over centuries, decades, but really centuries and sometimes millennia before there is a catastrophic event like an earthquake or a volcano. And Pluto kind of works in that way too. So Pluto stationing direct on the day, we might not feel something, but that might be the trigger moment where something that's been building for the last few years is unleashed, or begins to shift and change into its final form, and what have you. So that is our astrology for the week. Isn't that fun? Isn't this fun stuff? Huh? Who doesn't love witchcraft? Huh? Okay. Okay. So that's our astrology for the week. And I think that's probably plenty. So now let's talk about our tarot card that we can work with this week to help us with this stuff, kinda, and some magic that we can do in the midst of all of this turmoil. All right, before we get into this week's tarot card, let me remind you that our upcoming tarot circle for October is going to be on the Tower card, and nothing can go wrong. Oh no, it all went wrong. This is going to be October 12th, I think. I should probably know that because I'm hosting it. I think it's the 12th. Tarot Circle is a community building event that we hold every month over on my Patreon. Everyone who is subbed to Patreon is welcome as well. If you are taking tarot workshops with me, you are welcome to come to that month's Tarot Circle. Some months we do community building stuff. This last month we did a collective reading for fall, which was fantastic and very heavy, and really enlightening. And this month, as I also do sometimes, a little bit more of a hardcore lecture style with me just sort of pummeling you with a bunch of information about a card or a few cards, and then question answer at the end. So would love to see you there. Tarot Circle, as I said, is open to all of my patrons. Patreon membership starts at a whopping $1 a month. And folks that are subbed at the $9 and up level not only get access to the Wheel of the Year workbooks and calendars and all of that good stuff, but they get access to the recordings of Tarot Circle. So if you can't make it for Tarot Circle, you can always watch the recording. Okay, so oh, I guess I should also say this. I have a 6-week tarot workshop happening right now, which has been it's so I love teaching this workshop. I love it. We're having a great time there. Thanks to everybody who's joined me this time around. I will be offering it again in a couple of months. But I have more standalone workshops coming up. There's information on my website throughout October and into November, which is the very, very bestest of times for doing divinatory practices, as we have talked about for Mabon season. Okay, so our tarot card for this week is everybody's favorite, the Three of Swords. Who doesn't love working with the Three of Swords? A lot of people. A lot of people actually don't like this card, and it's completely understandable. Why the Three of Swords? This card is related to the sign of Libra. And in particular, it is represented in some magical systems as Saturn in Libra. And we know that Saturn is, as I described earlier, glowering in the corner, angry grandpa, just grumpy, as all get out, right? Just mad at everybody and everything and trying to make it bad and hard for everybody. So, spending a little time with Saturn this week and kind of trying to understand what it's doing to us is positive or helpful. Maybe it's not positive, but it is helpful. So, what do we have with the Three of Swords? Well, the deck that I'm always working with is the Smith Waite deck. And looking at this image, we have three swords piercing a heart with storm and rain in the background. You can't get much more cheerful than that, right? So, first off, that solid gray background in this card is a deep connection to Saturn for me because Saturn is connected to the metal of lead. And so that gray sky in the background feels very leaden to me. But we have this heart that's just fully exposed, right? There isn't even a rib cage to protect it. It is just three swords pierced wham bam into the heart. And what are we doing with the Three of Swords? Well, in the most neutral stance, there is this sense of planning what we're going to do with the ideas that we have had about our future. But when we take that into the context of where we are astrologically, where we are in the world with everything that's going on here on planet Earth for our poor species, it's difficult to make plans for the future for a lot of people. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of hope in the world. And for a lot of us, it feels like we are kind of moving through the world with our heart on our sleeves, or at least not a not a good way to protect our heart-centered self from the evils and the perils of this particular reality. So when we are working with the Three of Swords, the really deep message here, even though the Suit of Swords is air and it's all about intellect and thoughts and information and stuff like that, the information here is pain. The information at this time is pain and painful. And what do we do with that? We take it in and we be affected by it. This is why I've been kind of hammering this week on talk to your people, talk to a therapist, talk to yourself if you can make that space for yourself to be able to speak in a measured and loving way to yourself. But this is a week of really examining our pain and really thinking about our pain and feeling our pain and understanding, what is the information that our pain is trying to give us. Again, we're looking at this image of a heart that is completely exposed, that has no protection whatsoever, and these swords are sharp and just running right through the center of this organ, sort of piercing them and spearing them in this. And the thing is this: none of us are going to get out of this life alive. Um, like, and we all have pain in this life, and we all are going to have painful experiences. That's totally subjective to each individual person and their circumstances, but all the same, it's a pretty universal experience that we all will experience pain and have painful experiences. And that's something that you can't run away from. You can do drugs, you can gamble, you can, have loads of sex, you can have piles of money, but your pain will always be there with you, even when you address it. And so this card is really sort of asking us to just sit with this pain. And what's maybe the most important and frustrating part of this, and I think this is why Saturn is so pivotal with this card and in this moment, is time is really kind of the only medicine that can be applied to our pain, that is effective in any real way, right? Again, we can sex our way through pain, we can drink our way through pain, we can gamble our way through pain, we can spend money through pain, but the pain is right there on the other side of our experience when we're done, using these unhealthy coping mechanisms. The pain is still there. It is time and sitting with ourselves in these places that is the only type of remedy that ever really truly gives us any relief. And Saturn, if anything, is time. It really makes us sit with shit. So I know that isn't like the happiest card for us to work with. It's not the most exciting thing under the sun. But when we allow ourselves to truly and authentically feel our pain, we can name it and we can heal it. It doesn't happen overnight. It's often an up and down, back and forth seesaw kind of a process where we make 2 steps forward and we take a step back, and it's this little dance that we're doing with our souls. But this card is really here to remind us and sort of hold us in that place of like, hey, I know this sucks and it's gonna suck, but the sooner we get real with ourselves about this, the sooner we can start to find some comfort, the sooner we can start to find some healing. And then ultimately, if we really work on our stuff, we may in fact even be able to turn that healing into medicine and wisdom that we get to share with other people who are also going through painful experiences like the ones that we've had. And that is some of the deepest work that we can do with Chiron, whom we are also seeing the effects of this week, right? With that sun opposition to Chiron. So that stuff. I know that's not the most cheerful, exciting, card to work with, but it's real and we can't avoid it, right? It's not all going to be wine and roses and cotton candy every week and like, ooh, sparkly magic witchcraft, guys, whoop. We do have some weeks of that, but this is not that week. And this also, in my opinion, sits very solidly with the work that we are doing here in Mabon season, this work that we're doing with our Jewish friends and ancestors around Yom Kippur, our Greek friends and ancestors around Thesmophoria, and all these other holidays that are like, hey, you need to get real with yourself about where you are holding pain, where you're holding resentment, where you're holding a grudge, where you're holding shame or guilt around something, and process that shit and let it go. Like name it and sit with it and be with it, and then let time and love, I know I said it, let time and love ultimately transform it into something that is a medicine and a wisdom that we get to share with others. Just that stuff. That's all we're doing this week. It's no big deal. It's pretty casual. Yeah, we should be fine. And that brings us to our magic and ritual and witchcraft that we want to be incorporating this week. We are in a waxing moon, so building up, doing things is promoted here. And I would also say this: we have an eclipse coming up at the end of the month, so if you are wanting to do magic and ritual and witchcraft and stuff, it's kind of like now's the time, because once we hit eclipse season, it's not so great for doing magic. And opinions vary about that, whether that matters or not, or is it okay some of the time and not okay some of the time. I am definitely of a mind of listen to your intuition, listen to your gut first and foremost, then take other people's advice. I personally tend to not do magic, ritual, or witchcraft or spell crafting on eclipses if I can avoid it. And in particular, there are some that I absolutely avoid it, period. I will do my thing the day before, the day after, or even sometimes I give it a larger buffer than that. This coming eclipse that we have at the end of the month is kind of gnarly. And so I definitely am going to try to get my stuff in now with this full moon, or up to this full moon at the end of the month, or excuse me, at the end of the week, before things start to get funkified out there in the atmosphere. So if we are looking at Mabon ritual work, taking up a cause or a charity that is important to your community, getting more deeply involved in mutual aid groups, very holy work this week. Atonement, saying you're sorry, making amends, reaching out to people that there's been funky energy between you and them, very holy work this week. collecting seeds, especially while the moon is in Aquarius. Very holy work this week. But I think also something like the lighting of lamps could be very holy this week. Um, Figure like literally and figuratively, and like sparking a little hope in the world in the midst of the darkness that's kind of coming on us, I think could be very holy. Other spellcrafting and ritual stuff that we could do though, making wine and doing things that are like canning things, but also fermentation stuff. So wine, mead, that sort of work. Um, Purification of self and home also could be really appropriate this week as well. And we might do some ancestor work if that feels appropriate to you, but like cleaning up graves could be really appropriate, or even just literally like going outside and sweeping the sidewalk in front of your apartment, and sort of tidying up a little bit around your environment. Um, that in of itself could be a really powerful spell of acknowledging the physical space. It's a very earthy week astrologically. And magically, so kind of laying a bit of claim to it. You might do a little bit of protection magic as you're doing that as well, and just sort of like witnessing the changes of earth as it continues to shift out of its summer body and into its fall embodiment. I think those are all really powerful ways that we can work with witchcraft and ritual this week. Um, I think that's really all I want to say about that. Yeah, I think that's everything. So let's get into our roundup for the week. We have 150,000 holy days. We've covered that. Sunday, October 2nd, we have our waxing half moon at 9 degrees 47 minutes of Capricorn, and Mercury stationing direct at 24 degrees of Virgo. On October 3rd, Monday, we got nothing. Tuesday, October 4th, the moon moves into Aquarius. Wednesday, the 5th, it's still in Aquarius. Thursday, the 6th, it reaches gibbous phase at 28 degrees of Aquarius at 2:36 a.m. And then at 5:46 a.m., the moon will move into Pisces. Also on this day, later in the evening, / the next day for everybody else around the planet, we have Mercury in Virgo trine Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 26 degrees. Friday the 7th, we have the Sun in Libra oppose Chiron retrograde in Aries at 14 degrees. And on Saturday the 8th, we have the Moon moving into Aries, and we have Pluto stationing direct at 26 degrees of Capricorn. And our lunar phases this week are moving from Capricorn to Aries. These are both cardinal signs. And so our lunar phases are still assisting us with starting or opening up or initiating the season of fall. Okay, my witches and pagans and heathens, that's it. And I'm going to assume that is more than enough. I know that's a lot of heavy stuff for this week. Um, it's okay. It's okay. There will be lightness again in the future. There will be joy and happiness even in the midst of the scary, spooky spots. But I think that our lesson that our Three of Swords card is bringing for us is really heartfelt, no pun intended. But that idea of we can't run away from our pain, we have to face it. Now, we need to do that in a way that's healthy and sustainable for us as individuals and as communities. But all the same, we can't run away from it. It's not going anywhere. It has to be addressed in one way or another, in whatever measure we do that. We have to do it. Again, we want to do it in ways that are healthy. We want to do it in ways that are sustainable. We want to do it in ways that are, future oriented or even present oriented, not in ways that are neglectful of the self or harmful to the self or harmful to our friends and family and community. But we do want to address, where have we come up short, And what can we do to make that better? Have I hurt you? Is there a way that I can make amends? Because again, we are about to go into the dark, and in a lot of ways, in my country and in other countries around the world, we have been in the dark for a little while now. Um, and It's spooky in here if we feel like we are alone. It's spooky in here if we feel like we've got some baggage from past deeds that we have not buried and put to rest. So, um, sometimes facing our pain and facing these moments that hurt, shame, whatever it is, are actually the ways that we create peace for ourselves because we can finally put that burden down. We can finally put that thing to rest because we've made amends, we've said our piece, we've let the other person say what they needed to say, and we've come to some sort of, mutual understanding with each other. And that kind of peace is exceptionally rare in our modern world. It's very, very hard to find. And so in these moments when we can create that kind of peace for ourself, that's really, really special. Is it difficult? Yeah, it is. Is it painful? Yes. Yes, it is. Um, but it's priceless. That is the truest gold that we could possibly harvest out of our life's experience. All right, my witches, my heathens, my pagans. Love you so much. Blessed be.